Funding for the Our Town podcast is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota, and the members of KSMQ Public Television. Thank you.
This is Danielle Teal with Our Town Podcast, a KSMQ public television show. We have a very, very good show today that has an amazing guest. She is in the front lines, or at least remotely, with COVID-19 kind of pivoting how she's delivering higher education. So I have Jeanine Gangness. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay, perfect. And she is the Assistant Vice President of Winona State University. We're going to just dive in a little bit on your journey to Winona. So how did you come about being the Assistant Vice President? And then we'll kind of go into how higher education has pivoted in the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Danielle, for the question. So my journey is through Bemidji State. I was a faculty member and a department chair, and then the dean for nursing. And so prior to that, I worked as a nurse in public health. So here we are in the middle of COVID-19, and all of this seems like a lot of epidemiology and a lot of community health work. And so I am happy that we have such a strong system here in Minnesota. Then I came down to Rochester because it was a great opportunity to expand, including nursing, but also education, social work, and we also have really strong computer science and business programs here. So I got to work more with the community. I found out that I just love working with the community, so that was fantastic. And through the time that I've been here, I think that we've just had an opportunity to expand our graduate program. So in addition to Associate Vice President or Assistant Vice President, I'm also working as the Dean of Graduate Studies, which has been a really big population for us.
Awesome. And, you know, the delivery digitally of higher education is nothing new to your platform. So how has it changed, though, in the COVID-19 pandemic? You know, how has that delivery been modified a bit? Because now everybody is doing it remotely.
Yeah, so remote delivery of higher education is really supported in the background with really great teaching and learning support. So we are fortunate at Winona State. We have a eWarrior program, which means that we have all of our residential students in Winona have a laptop. They're part of a laptop program. So their transition, although not all online programming, in fact, most of it isn't, they at least had the infrastructure to move online. So that's been helpful. We also have a really nice team of instructional designers and folks that really work with our faculty to be creative about how you achieve your learning outcomes. So I've just been able to see a lot of fun opportunities for the Winona faculty who are looking at how do you teach drumming online, how do you teach dance online, and chemistry experiments, all those interesting things that they would not be normally doing online, and it's not ideal, but they are so creative. This is really where teachers I would say flex their creativity skills, and so we've been pretty fortunate there. In Rochester, most of our programs are either hybrid, which means some of it's online, or completely online. So that means that folks already know how to sign into a platform. They already know how to engage and communicate with their faculty. So for us, we have really been working with underserved populations to make sure they have access to Wi-Fi in their homes, because that's not always the case. And they had been going to public gathering places. So now we're working with them and the great opportunities in this area to really connect to Wi-Fi in their home and identifying places in parking lots, like at our RCTC place and also in our downtown location, where we can have students drive in and connect up. So we are looking very closely at all of those folks that really need connectivity, that maybe this is a new world for them.
And so how are the students handling this new normal? I mean, for some of them that have done the long distance learning, this is nothing new to them. But for the students that have had to kind of modify how their learning experiences and how they respond to it, how has that been?
You know, we are constantly reaching out and making sure the students are getting what they need for connecting in. So for us, we have developed a list of who hasn't signed in yet, and then reaching out to them via telephone or some other means that maybe not email, maybe that's not the way they reach out, and because they haven't connected yet. And so we're being really careful about how we connect. I will tell you, we don't have a very large percentage of students that haven't connected in, because even prior to this, and across our whole population, we had very few faculty that weren't using the platform, at least for something like a syllabi or some assignments or just tracking information. So the students, what we're doing is reaching out to them specifically and saying, do you need help? Is there a way we can connect you to Wi-Fi if that's the issue? Is there a way, if your computer just decided this was the time to explode, how can we make sure you have other resources? The other thing I want to bring out is this is so different. You know, this is different than hanging out with your friends. And so we've been really intentional about mental health support and reaching out to our students and saying, you know, we're all grieving the loss of the way we used to do things, and we miss you too, right? So it's just such a different way to engage. And so reaching out to those students and saying, this is different. We want you to be safe and healthy. And if you need to reach out to us and we do a one-on-one visit, or you connect with our counseling center, all of those resources are available. And we just want to make sure our students are as healthy as they can be. That's so important for us.
Yes, I think students and just the community in general needs to hear those sorts of messages. Do you have some students that are in the front lines, essential workers, and providing flexible schedules and attendance for that? Are you working with those students as well?
Right. So if you think about the population we serve in Rochester for extending your education, we're talking about teachers, we're talking about nurses, we're talking about social workers. Now, all of the ones, and others too, but those are all essential employees. And so although we've started doing virtual work with our simulation for nursing, we also have still doing clinical experiences that are virtual now. So we have student teaching happening, but now our students are working with teachers in the school districts and working with them to help them get everything online for the pre-K 13 student body. And so I've had a chance to visit with some of those students. You know, they miss their students, right? They just really feel bad about that. However, they have access to so many tools that are just part of their lives that I think the collaboration with the school districts has been really important. Nurses, that has been a different situation. So most of the students are doing virtual simulation. However, our graduate population, we have a very big graduate nursing population, they're all licensed. So they're working. And so we're being very flexible with the kind of engagement we have with those folks. We have always had a flexible schedule because they were working before, right? But our clinical times for our nurse practitioner students, that has continued because they're part of the workforce. And so we wouldn't want to remove them from the workforce. And so the clinical sites are like, no, we want them to come. And so we're happy to provide that level of support too. So nurse practitioners, they're out there doing their work. And then we have a population that are part of the National Guard. Those students, we're working with them on ways to adjust their class or extend it so that while they're called away, that they're not really pulled into the demands of the classroom. And so we do have several students that are part of the National Reserves. So it's important for us to stay connected with them because they're so valuable to combating COVID-19. And so I would say that these are all things that we do every day. And I think it's important that we have people out there really doing the good work.
What are some lessons learned with the curriculum? Any barriers that you've experienced?
So a few things have really been fast tracked, right? All of a sudden we have to go online or we have to be virtual. So I would say we faculty have really jumped into this and learned a lot about how to do quality work online and doing virtual simulations of a variety of activities. I think we've all learned about what personal contact is important. And so how do you connect with your students one-on-one? Well, now we do it virtually, but it's still just as important as it used to be. I would say that every single day, I think, thank goodness we have a strong infrastructure in technology. That has made the transition just incredible. So we have those folks who are doing instructional design and making sure that all of the systems are working and reaching out and saying, I know you don't normally teach online. How can we help you with this? Or, boy, that Zoom room, I just don't get that piece where it's where we're creating breakout rooms. Can you show me how to do that? And doing that on the fly. I think all those things are huge. So as I look back, I think, thank goodness for good technology support, right? Huge. And I also think, a lot of people are trying something new, and this is challenging and stressful while we're all experiencing a lot of stress with families and just community, and we don't know what's going to be happening next week with this pandemic. And so I just have to do a shout out. Boy, people are really stepping up, and I am so proud to be a part of not only the nursing workforce, but also the higher ed workforce. Just fantastic.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And speaking of, I think a lot of institutions can take a note from higher education. Has the elementary, middle school, high school, local public schools consulted with you all on best way to deliver their curriculum as well through virtual and remote?
Well, they have their own systems, but I would say through student teachers and our graduate induction program, those are all groups that are currently already embedded in the school districts. And so they have reached out. On a personal note, my brother-in-law teaches science in the middle school and high school. That's a whole different world, right? And so we have done a lot of one-on-ones about what about this tool? How does this work? And, just a lot of lost sleep with that population going, I didn't know this was going to happen, right? And so they have really stepped up too. And so we've been doing a lot of work with our student teachers to make sure they're up to speed and they can help out. And then just personal teachers that I know we've been trying to make sure that they are taken care of, because they make such a difference. So I just love that they're doing these parades in different communities for healthcare workers and teachers and different heroes than we normally talk about. But I really think it's important to do that. Good for the morale.
Yes, our heroes are really coming out to the front lines, aren't they?
Indeed.
Yeah. So do you think the landscape for education is going to look differently now that technology has been really integrated into the delivery of education. Do you think that some decisions are going to be made to kind of modify that?
Well, that's a good question. I think I would say that everything is going to be different because of COVID-19.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I think back over my career without giving too much around age here that, everything changed after HIV. We didn't we didn't stop using gloves, after that. We continued to. Everything changed after 9/11. We still have security at the airports, right? And so I don't know what the next change will be for COVID-19, but I think it's a fairly safe guess to say that things are going to change. And so whether that's in healthcare delivery or in higher ed delivery, we now have a lot of on the job experience with emergencies and emergencies that we didn't think about before. So my guess is we're all about how we're going to be doing things around testing virtually and making sure it's secure, not only for higher ed, but the folks that need to be licensed. So that's a little hiccup that we're dealing with right now, because we need teachers and nurses and social workers and all those folks to take their exams so that they can actually practice, right? And so I think that we're going to probably see some rollout of how we can do this in a way where we can be safe and distanced. So we'll see what comes, though. I think things are going to change.
How are you meeting the needs of students that may be experiencing some mental and emotional challenges while they're enduring, being confined at home? Is Winona State University providing a space for people to connect in engagement?
So yes, we are. I think in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go through the several options. So one is with faculty reaching out and making sure students are connected, because you can tell that when students start to not feel as emotionally connected, they may not sign into their courses, they may not do assignments, and then we can reach out and make sure that they are brought back or they are referred. The other thing we have is we have health services and counseling services, and all of our counselors have now been trained to do essentially telecounseling, right? And so that's very important. You can reach out and get an appointment with one of our counselors. We also have all these great community resources. So we compiled all of the resources around mental health, and a week or so ago, I posted a blog post about well-being. And so we had all of the resources on the bottom of that. So we're sharing that out with students too. And we did a pretty broad group of resources because we have students in La Crescent, in Winona, in Red Wing, in Rochester, Stewartville, and then and we do actually conduct classes in Austin. And so I think we needed to have a lot of different resources depending on the community, right? But the great thing about telemedicine and telecounseling is no matter where you are, you can connect in with licensed professionals to make sure your needs are being met.
Have the students communicated any needs that are pretty prevalent that you're having to connect with them on?
Not yet is the real answer. I think everybody's just trying to get into the swing of things again. And so my anticipation is that when we look back at this, we'll be able to compile that information and say, boy, this is an area we should have leaned into. We're just really focused right now on what were the normal things we would have been doing and how they're happening now, and how do we engage students to make sure that their voice is heard, and things like virtual commencement. We want to celebrate, but it's going to be celebration in a different way, right?
That was my next question, was how do those graduation ceremonies look like? Are you going to delay them, or are you going to do the virtual ceremony?
Yeah, right now we're looking at data from our students, and my assumption is that we're going to be really leaning into a virtual ceremony for this spring, with the option for students who want that walk across the stage experience to allow them to come at some future point, right? When it's safe for them. And I think there's a lot of fun ways we can do that. We're looking into that, especially right now I'm focused on how do we honor the work of our graduate students, and who hooded you during this time and you received your regalia, and how does that look now that you have completed a graduate degree, huge milestone, you know. And so I think that we're really focused on how can we engage students, let them know that we are as proud of them as their parents are. And we are so thrilled that they've completed this. We are completely bummed that we couldn't celebrate with them in the space. However, we love to hear their comments about how we could make it better, right? And dealing with the bad situation, but still celebrating all the awesome things that they've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Do you think that you would possibly delay it and just combine them all, or is there kind of a policy that it needs to be done in a certain time frame?
For commencement ceremony.
Correct.
Yeah. It's tough when students get out there and start working to bring them back. So I think we're looking at all the options. The curious thing is we just can't predict this pandemic, right?
Yeah.
When could we delay it to? We don't know that answer. And so I think that's going to be the tricky thing. So often we plan around ebbs and flows of our community or tourism or several other things. I have found myself saying, well, based on the epidemiology, I think we'll be safe at this point. Well, that's just amazing that you could even think that you would plan that way for this work. And so, and it's a guess, right? We're just hoping based on a model that we could bring back some things. And so I think as we look at it, we hope to do a celebration in the future. We'll certainly invite folks to be a part of that, but we just can't predict in the next 6 months if that's going to even be possible.
That goes really well with my next question. In the planning aspect of it, are you planning things differently in how you deliver the curriculum in the next 3-6 months, or is it just kind of every month, case by case, go from there? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so the answer is online this summer.
Okay.
I think that Winona State is planning to do online this summer. And then there are ongoing discussions about fall. It's just a tough thing to predict right now.
So this is more personal for you. How are you doing in all of this? I mean, what is the one thing you miss the most?
Oh, what do I miss the most? Those are a lot of things. I think just wandering around and connecting with people and saying hi and having coffee together, and sometimes it's just going out and shopping not that you're buying, but you're just seeing people, and it's a stress reducer. I think those are the things I miss the most, is just being around people, right? And so otherwise, we're doing pretty well. So my husband and I are very comfortable with, planning our daily walks. We found space where we can have a lot of space between us and others. And when we walk through a golf course, it's great. And so I think for us, it's just been really fun to reconnect, right? Versus all this crazy work. Sometimes I walk out of my little office and say, how was your day at 5 p.m.? And even though he's a room away, right? And so I just miss the people. That's the biggest thing.
When this is all over, What is the one thing you want to do?
Oh, when this is all over, what do I want to do?
Do you want to go shopping? Do you want to go shopping with me? Let's go shopping.
Yes, let's go shopping and let's have real live face-to-face happy hour. How about that?
That sounds really good. Maybe with some tacos too.
All right, I'm all about it.
That sounds really good. Okay, so my final question related to the CDC recommendations with masks. Are you sharing those sorts of guidelines and recommendations with your students and that sort of thing?
We do share that information, and of course we have turned over a lot of equipment for use by healthcare facilities, like beds and supplies and those kinds of things. Our labs are looking pretty empty right now. But we are sharing the CDC guidelines, and you can anticipate pretty soon I am posting guidelines for wearing a cloth mask, non-medical grade, and wearing glasses, and how to decrease the chance of you fogging your glasses while you're wearing a mask.
So, okay, I'm gonna need that information, because I was wearing my mask yesterday with my sunglasses, and it kept fogging up in my sunglasses. So I'll be looking for that.
All right. First thing, most of the time this works for me, is just wash your glasses with soap and water before you walk out the door. And usually that cuts it.
Oh, well, that's an easy trick.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Jeanine, for being a guest today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for tuning into Our Town podcast. Leave us a review. And if you liked it, please subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. You can catch up with us on Facebook or Twitter at KSMQ Our Town with the hashtag. Tune in next week for more Our Town.